Hey, welcome back, guys, to part two for my intro to Vue making a PokeDex website. If you haven't watched part one already, I do highly recommend it. We really go through a lot of code, and it's really relevant for the video we have right now. But without further ado, let's jump right in. All right, so if you remember, we have our previous application over here, and yeah, so we have our list of Pokemon getting printed out in a table. We have a little bit of routing going on, so we can actually go to the login component, and this is a different page. This is using vue-router over here, and if we click the icon, the brand logo over here, we can go back to our main page over here. So now let's work on our login component. Let's actually build a nice form over here which takes in an email and a password, and then you can log in. So let's actually go back here to our login component, and now we can actually just delete the text inside here, and let's actually wrap this inside a class container over here. And inside that, we can actually use the layouts that Bootstrap provides. So class equals row, and we want to center it. So justify content center, and we want to align it vertically as well. So align items center. Cool, we got all of that. Close this tag over here. What's next? We have to define how many columns we're using within this row. So we'll go div class equals column of 6, takes up 6 column spaces, and we have that nice little center magic going on now. And now inside here we can start building out our login component. So we're going to use Bootstrap cards for this. So again, another div over here with class equals card. Close this tag over here. Just want to close it as soon as possible so I don't get lost in this tag loop over here. So div class equals card body. And we close that again. I'm so used to being on a Mac that I forget how far these keys are over here. Okay, and anyways, yeah, so let's start with the H3 tag over here that says login. And this has let's add some styling to this through the class prop. Class equals H3, some margin bottom 3, and font weight is normal. Cool. We have that nice little login stuff going on here. Let's add a label with some text saying email address, and then an input where we will put our email address over here. So we will actually, this has a class equals to form control. Let's add some margin on the y-axis, about 3, and then placeholder will equal to email address, and this is obviously a required field, and yeah. So now let's work on the password portion of things. So label, password, label, close the tag, and another input for the password. So now this is of type equals password, and the same thing where class is equal to form control margin y, and the placeholder will be password, and obviously this is required as well, and this is a self-closing tag. The same goes for this, it's a self-closing tag. Let's add a few stuff to label over here. So we'll say it's for equals input email. So it kind of belongs to this, and then over here we need to reference it by an ID. So an ID equals to input email. The same thing over here, for equals input password, and over here we go ID equals input password. Cool. So we have that. Class, let's add a class over here. Class equals screen reader only, and the same thing goes for this one over here. And now we got all this stuff ready. So now let's add our button to log in. So button class equals margin top 5, margin bottom 3, and text, wrong one. btn primary, btn large, and then btn block. Cool. And this will be sign in, and then this will close it over here. Nice. At the bottom, let's add a nice little p tag just so it looks more professional. So we'll have the copyright symbol over here. We'll do copy. Let's just do t dot code 2020. Cool. And then we close that p tag over here. Just got to add a bit of classes over here. So class equals to margin top 5, margin bottom 3, and text is muted. Cool. Let's see what's complaining over here. Parsing invalid end tag. Oh, okay, I see, because this is an H1, this has to be an H3. Save that. Cool. So we have all of this ready. Let's see if it's being reflected. Cool. So now we have this nice little login page going on over here. And the reason why it's not centered in the middle is because container needs to have a style of height of 100% view height. And then this needs to also have a style equals to height is 100%. Save that. Let's see if it's reflected. Yeah, so it's nicely in the middle. We can add like our email and our password, and we can hit sign in. And obviously right now sign in doesn't really do anything, so let's try to like work on that. So again, we're using the composition API, so we just have to use our setup function over here. We need to keep in our state the email and password, so we need again to use refs for our state management within our local component. So let's just make one, let email equals to ref, and we'll actually import ref soon, and let password equals to ref. And over here we will make a function called trigger login, and it already has equals to our function, arrow function. It already has access to our email and password here. We don't need to pass it into this, but let's actually just console log email password over here. Let's just do email.value, because remember ref, if you're trying to access ref, you need to reference it by using the .value at the very end. And to make this template have access to all of these, we actually need to return it over here. So we return the email, the password, and the trigger login. Cool. So now at the button here, we want to attach an on-click event listener. And the way we do that in Vue is there's a short form called @click, which just means an event. And over here we can use our trigger login over here. So now we have access to this over here, and now we need to have a two-way binding between our input and our variable. So in Vue we actually have this thing called vbind over here. So vbind, it's vmodel equals to email, And then we do the same thing over at the bottom one where we vModel is equal to password. So we save that. Oh yeah, ref we haven't imported yet, so let's go over here and import ref from view over here. Save that. Everything looks good. Let's refresh this page. Cool. So now we just add anything random with any random password. We hit sign in, and we see that it is getting console logs with the appropriate values too, with the DSASS or whatever. So I'll add a few extra stuff in. We hit click, and there we go. So now we see that there is two-way binding between inputs and variables going on. Now there's too much stuff going on here. We want the entire application to know when a user is logged in. And a way to do that is through state management. We could use Vuex. Vuex is kind of like what was used for quite a long time. It's still useful in like today's application, but just like React, they're kind of building their own ready-made APIs for you to manage state internally without importing any other library like Vuex, or in case of React, it's Redux. Yeah, it's Redux. So let's try to make our state now. With the same, we'll use the same kind of functionality that Vue provides. So over here, let's actually create a new folder called store over here. And inside our store, we will have a new file called auth.js over here. Cool. So now we're inside where we want to make our state. This is where we want the entire application to go to access stuff in one global central state. So we need a few things. You know how we were using refs before? Let's actually this time use reactive. Reactive is also another API that Vue provides. And the difference why we're using reactive here as compared to like, oh, why aren't you using refs again? Because refs are used for variables that are like variables that just hold strings, hold booleans, hold numbers. Like they're just very simple variables. Whereas if you want to hold complex objects, you need to use reactive, because refs only do a shallow reference, whereas reactive does a whole deeply nested reactive object. So it's used the same way as ref. So we do const state is equal to reactive over here, and then we declare how our object is going to look like. So we want to have a state where we know if the user is authenticated or not. So initially when they start, it will be false, so we'll set it to false. And let's just create the let's store like the username, right? It's going to be empty for now. So we're going to create a function over here. So export default function. I'm going to call this use auth over here. And inside here is where we want to do all our mutating of the reactive state. So we're going to do a few things for logging in and logging out. So we're going to create a function here called login, and it's going to take email and password. And over here, I'm just going to do some basic checking where password does not equal to secret 123, then return false. And then over here, if it's true, I actually want to update the state. So what I'm going to do is state.username. Actually, let's change this to email, because just to stay consistent. So email is equal to email, and then state dot is authenticated is equal to true, because now we're saying, okay, so if the password does equal that, then we do want to fall through and update the state where it's equal to true. And finally, we just return true for our login over here. Now again, I'm not making a backend server or anything like that, so I'm just managing the state all from within the application. In a real life application, you're going to be making like an API call inside here, and then whatever response you get is going to be like a JWT token, and you store that on your on your client-side application, and then on every subsequent request, you use the JWT. That's how it would usually work. But for this case, we're just trying to focus on Vue, so this is how we're just going to do it to go through some shortcuts, but still show the power of Vue. Okay. So now let's make our logout component over here. It's simply not going to take any arguments. It's just going to reset our state. So we're just going to do state.email is equal to an empty string, and state dot is authenticated is false. And that's all we need to do for this. And finally, we need to return a few things. We need to return our state. We need to return the login function and the logout function for other components to use. So yeah, cool. So now we have this. There's one little small problem. Reactive doesn't propagate its changes throughout the entire application. Like if I use useState in another application, state isn't exactly reactive. The only place it's reactive is if we use it inside the setup function here. And there are docs explaining that. But there is a way around that, or a way to allow it to for its changes to get propagated to different places that are using it. It's this thing called toRefs over here. So we're gonna convert our state to refs. Another thing we're gonna use is read only. So read only over here. So what we're going to do now is make sure our state is read only. We don't want any mutation to happen outside of the application, outside of the state. We want just the state to control the state, right? We don't want to pass it to login component, and the login can make changes to it. So we're going to make it read only. And then finally, we're going to wrap that with toRefs over here. And this makes our state now reactive to any component that's trying to use it outside. Finally, let's just spread our state. So now let's now spread our state so it's more easily accessible when we try to deconstruct it in a different place. Cool. So we have our nice little simple state management for authentication. So now let's import it over here. So import use auth from .. We're trying to go into our store and slash auth over here. Cool. So now let's actually pull those out. So we're going to pull out our login function from here. And that's all we really need from here. So remember that useAuth is a function and it returns login over here. It returns login and it is a function. So we're just gonna call that function over here and get the login. So now all we're gonna do is login, and then we're gonna pass our email.value and password.value over here. Cool. So let's actually just console log this. Let's just con success is equal to login, and then we console log success over here just to see what the state returns. So let's remove this above over here. Let's save that. It successfully compiles, and now let's see for the moment of truth. Let's just put anything over here, because again, we're not checking email, we're just checking if a password equals a certain thing. So now I'm just going to put a random password in and hit sign in, and there we do see false over here. That's good. So now let's see whether it spits out true for our password that we did put in. And there we go. I put in the right password and it returned true. That's cool. We're making a lot of progress here. So now we want to navigate back to our home page if we're logged in. We shouldn't be able to see the login page if we are authenticated. So what we're going to do now is if success is true, so we're just going to go here, if success is true, then we're just going to navigate to a different page, and we got to pull in our router that we just made. So let's pull in our router over here. So import router from router over here. Cool. So now we have our router over here. So now we should be able to navigate by just saying router.push back to our home page over here. So if we save that and go back here, add in a random email, and then add in the correct email, the correct password, hit sign in, and there we do get navigated back to our home page. But here's one problem. When we hit login, we're going back to our login. We shouldn't be able to do that, and we shouldn't be able to even see the login button over here. So let's make a few changes using our state. So how do we do that? So let's so we got our login over here. Let's do the first thing where we go to our router over here and make a few changes over here. So router.for each, and then for each we have a to where it's going to, from where it's coming from, and next is just saying, okay, so let the route execute successfully. So now we're gonna actually import our state over here. So now we can use our state. So import use auth from is it ./store? Yeah, store/auth. I think so. We'll figure that out soon. Okay, so now we just gotta get our is authenticated. We gotta pull that out of our state. Equals to use auth. So now since we have that, we can do a few checks. So we don't want to, if we're authenticated, we don't want to get access to our login page. So we're just going to add a few things where we're just going to say for our to.name, which is over here, our name is login. So if our name is equal to login, it's actually triple equal that. If it's equal to login and is authenticated value is true, then we actually want to go to our home. So we just want to hit home over here, and then if that's not true, then we just want to just navigate to wherever you were going. So let's save that. So we're correctly pulling this in. Let's do a few things with so let's see if this works. First of all, we shouldn't be able to go to our login. Router.forEach is not a function. It's not for each, it's before each. Save that. And then we go back here. Cool, so now we're in our login component over here. We add the correct password. We hit sign in, and now when we try to hit login, if you notice, we can't go to login. So now we're kind of guarding our one route from navigating there because we're authenticated and we don't need to see that. Let's actually pull in our state in our nav bar as well. So let's import use auth from /store/auth, and over here we need a setup function, and over here we're just gonna is authenticated is equal to use auth, and then we're just gonna return is authenticated over here. And we're just gonna do another thing. We want to render conditionally based on is authenticated. So if a user is authenticated, then we just want to display the logout button to them. And if they aren't authenticated, then we don't want to show the logout button. We only want to show the login button. So there's a way to do that. Actually, it's called vue-if. So we just say if vue-if is equal to is authenticated, then we want to display this. Else, so then the other one is vue-else, and we don't have to do anything because this is just, if this doesn't pass, then this will show. And we actually want to, we leave this to a button. And another thing we actually want to pull in is also logout, and pass our logout over here. And just so for some clarification, you must be wondering, why aren't we using value over here like we were using everywhere else? So when we pass our ref into our setup function, which makes it available to our template, we don't need to use .value in this place over here because it's already assumed by Vue. So we just we can just remove this over here, And we do want an on-click handler over here. So if you remember to do that, we do add click. And then when it's clicked, we actually want to execute our logout over here. So if we save that, real nice. See, now we only see our logout because we are logged in. So let's hit our logout over here. Set up logout's not a function. Let's see. Oh, is auth needs to be a function, so I need to save that. Let's actually refresh this and start. Oh, this needs to be inverse actually, because if you're not authenticated, then you want to see the login button here. So if we go back here, we see our login, we click that, add in a random text for your email, and then add secret 123, hit sign in, and we get navigated back to our home page now, and we only see the login button. So let's click our login, and once I click that, I get toggled back to not authenticated. And now I can go back to my login page over here. Really sleek, really cool. It's really nice. Our state management over here. This is a very simple form of state management. I do want to go into a more complex style. I want to put this into a state as well, and then put the Pokemon where we're just viewing one Pokemon component also into another state. So we're going to do that in the next video. Stay tuned. There's a lot of fun stuff. There's a lot of little nuances here and there that we're going to learn, and it's really going to be helpful for you to know as a Vue developer. So stay tuned, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.